Hi, people. Thank you for stopping by at Building Wealth with Rajeev. I'm sure you would have called some bank or some other company, and all you hear, we are busy right now and call back us later. You call back after some time and hear the same damn voice. How can we humanize servicing in this digital age? I had a chat with Ron Kaufman. Ron is a legend in the field. He's a New York Times best-selling author of Uplifting Service. He's written about 15 books in the field. I hope you enjoy the discussion. If you like the discussion, please share and also subscribe the channel.
Now, tell me what bothers you about servicing these days? I mean, I'm sure, Ron, you
Yeah,
travel the world.
I got that one. I got that one. I'll tell you what bothers me about the world these days.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
there's this historical culture that's evolved for humanity, generally speaking, certainly in the quote, modern developed world, that I use two words to describe it: calculating selfishness. All right. Calculating is the idea that, science and technology and capitalism gives us a way to keep score, to count, to see whether or not I won or you won, mine's bigger or yours is bigger. And the scientific part is that there's a right answer, that we can run the experiments and all that faith and trust that technology is going to make a better world. So just keep making it bigger and faster and more efficient. And of course, that'll be something better. How do you know it's going to be better? Because the numbers look better. Okay. The capitalism, I hardly even need to talk about that one. You know, the old expression, he who dies with the most toys wins. I mean, of course it would be a he, and just think of the stupidity of that phrase. Now, maybe there was an era post-World War II where we were just trying to, get out of that negative past and into a more flourishing future. But we have two problems with that. That God of science and that, God of money have sort of lived in a landscape in which we assumed that nature was just an exploitable resource. Our job was to conquer nature, tame the wilderness. I mean, holy Christmas, we've done that, but, look what it's produced as far as an ecological catastrophe for the species that we are. Now, the selfishness part is more philosophical. It's the idea that, Descartes really, suck us with that one about I'm here and the world's out there. Oh, give me a break. There is no I here without a world that you're part of. There is no self that doesn't get invented out of its relationship with others, starting with our families, then our friends in school, then our community, then our workforce, then our own families, then the world in which we live, et cetera, whether it's through hobbies or friends or whatever. You only exist, Rajeev, because other people exist. And yet we have this silly narrative about myself, my authentic internal self. If you knew my true self, ourselves exist as social phenomena. And once you understand that, you realize if I want to have a better self or a best self, it has to do with how I am with other people and to what extent I'm enabling them and supporting them and encouraging them and educating and helping them. That kind of a life is not one that's selfish. It's towards others. And yet the incredible gift that you get when you give is this sense of joy, which then gives you a better sense of, oh, I'm so happy to be the person that I am.
And that's affecting the quality of servicing and the quality of customer satisfaction everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, the term customer satisfaction is an old one. And it comes from an era of, a satisfied customer is a loyal customer. Not anymore. You can get satisfied by a lot of companies. Doesn't mean you're loyal at all because the competition is one click away. And by the way, the competition could be a new digital entrant you've never heard from before, but the messaging is good. You say, let's give it a try. Or you have one friend that recommends it and off you go. And 5 years of loyalty to this other organization just evaporated. Huh? So what came after satisfaction was a focus on delight. Like maybe we'll, if we delight the customer with moments of magical amazement and personal touch, okay, but that was too ad hoc. It wasn't consistent. So then the field, and I'm talking about it as a guy who's been in the field for 31 years, the field became customer experience. We started looking at the journey and end to end and the customer life cycle. Okay, that was all valid. Then we realized the purpose of the experience was to secure the loyalty. But then in the world of social media, it wasn't just loyalty. I wanted your advocacy. Please be an ambassador. Recommend us to a colleague or a friend. And right now, and COVID has really accelerated this, the whole field is moving into what I call the world of authentic customer care. Okay. Where you have a commitment to the well-being of the customer, not just to satisfying them in a transaction. You're interested in more than what were the conditions of satisfaction and the terms of the contract and the price and the deliverables and the KPIs. You want to know why they came to you. What is it that they really want in their future? And then you commit yourselves to enabling and helping them achieve that future. That kind of customer care, okay, you're not going to get it from the guy who sells cigarettes. But you're going to get it perhaps from companies that are thinking much longer term about developing a partnership with their customers, not just having a group of satisfied customers.
And do you want to elaborate a little bit on customer care? What does that mean? I mean, let's say I'm a banking customer.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great example. That's a great example because every human being will have a financial life cycle.
Yeah.
So you might get somebody who's, just out of college and they don't have a lot of assets. But at the same time, if we can give them a great experience and already start to open the conversation for them about, hey, congratulations on your graduation. Glad to hear you got a job. Happy to open for you here the savings account, checking account, credit card, et cetera. Just want to talk to you about, when the time comes and you want to start establishing your credit, that there are certain small loans, whether it's an auto loan or perhaps a mortgage on your first place or a personal loan. Here's what you need to already be thinking about, because your credit is going to be really important for you when the time comes that you start a family. And then when that occurs, we can have other conversations about educational savings. And then, hey, this is way too early, but when you're around 40, we'll be talking with you about your retirement planning. Okay. Now, why are you having that conversation with a 22-year-old? Because you want to show them that you're actually there and concerned about their future, not just let's get that account open and have you walk out the door with a credit card.
So it's like, it's a very good explanation, Ron, you've given. And, I hope banks take this, because imagine when I was in university and a bank comes to me, I'm a prospective customer at some point of time, but they tell me what banking is, and how should they educate me without selling a credit card. I think it will have a very different influence on me.
Well, the banks actually should be helping in the schools to teach the courses on personal financial well-being that the schools aren't teaching. And to me, that's a form of educational malpractice, because our educational institutions have evolved over hundreds of years, and they've gotten siloed into various disciplines. And the top professors in those disciplines have a lot of control over who gets the PhD and where do the research dollars go. And then there's all the tests that go down to the schools about how good is your school is based on your test scores, not based on the ethical behavior of the people who leave your school, the financial well-being, their physical health, their mental and family health. And don't tell me you're supposed to learn that from your family, because both parents are busy working and may not be the best paragons of education for that anyway.
Yeah, I think the social responsibility part needs to be widened a lot more than just donating some money to a particular charity, I guess.
So one of the principles that I developed years ago, we still teach, is called TPR. What it stands for is take personal responsibility. But the way we teach it is we say, look, blaming other people, it's a natural human thing. Let's not pretend it doesn't happen. It's just that it doesn't help. Feeling ashamed, I can't believe I made the same mistake. It's a natural human feeling, but it doesn't make anything better. And having an excuse, well, you have to hear my story, also doesn't help. If you step over the line to what we call TPR, then you're looking at the world going, okay, what can I do? What step can I take? Maybe it's just changing my own mood. Maybe it's reaching out to help somebody. Maybe it's saying thank you. Maybe it's going to learn something. But beyond TPR is CSR. But CSR is not corporate social responsibility, where you make a lot of money and then philanthropically you give some of it away to charity. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just that doesn't work anymore. Consumers are seeing right through that. Okay, you made your money exploiting the environment, but then you gave to a charity. Doesn't work anymore. Get out of fossil fuels. Okay. CSR to me is create shared responsibility. So you be the person that reaches out to your colleagues and says, hey, how about we do this? You be the one that mobilizes the family to say, what should we do about recycling? You be the one that reach out to your neighbors and say, hey, you know what? There's a new family that just moved in across the street, and English is not the native tongue. And why don't we be more welcoming? Why don't we, extend ourselves as a we, create shared responsibility? And the third level beyond that is to actually generate historic responsibility, where I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but you locate yourself in life as a person who can actually innovate, who can help create something that will endure beyond you. Maybe not exactly the way you thought it was going to be, but you don't just drift. You commit and you contribute to an inflection in the future itself.
Okay, I think, look, it's a great thing, and I have my views on CSR as well, because the way you're talking about CSR, I don't see any company doing it. I don't feel it.
Oh, no. Let me give you some examples then.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll take Salesforce.
Okay.
They need code. They need people who can write code. They need people who can manage accounts. They need people who can be Salesforce administrators in other companies that are Salesforce customers, right? So they have this whole learning environment called Trailhead, where you can go and you can take various learning trails. And they have these fun little characters you can follow, and they've gamified it, but they also make it at no cost available to people in various schools or in disadvantaged communities or in lower economic strata. And you can say, but they're just doing this for themselves. Yeah, well, go talk to the kids that are learning this stuff, because they're coming out of school and they get jobs, and they get good jobs because they have skills. And so, there's an example of creating a sense of shared responsibility where they're doing the hard work of getting into an educational system. And I say hard work because teachers are not always open to new ideas like that, especially about topics that are not amongst the classical academics. So you get Google's doing the same thing, where they're putting up coding classes that you can take online. They're free. And if you perform at a certain level, you got a job waiting for you. Now you could say, yeah, but they're just doing that because the schools aren't producing the people that they need. Yeah, that's a cynical way to look at it. Let's look at it another way. They're making educational available that otherwise is not being made available by our school system. And young people are getting good jobs.
So maybe that's not my age group.
Say again?
That's not my age group. That's why I'm not feeling it.
Okay.
But one thing is there, Ron, you talked about only technology companies, Salesforce, Google, So is it skewed? Or is it generally skewed in, that these companies, new generation companies, are realizing that? Or the legacy
I saw a news release yesterday, day before perhaps. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Philip Morris
cigarette company
has requested that cigarette sales be illegal by 2030. Excuse me, what? Which is intriguing, because what does Philip Morris do? Agriculture. What do they do? Packaging. What do they do? Branding. What do they do? Distribution. I wonder what they're working on. I wonder. Maybe it's plant-based foods. I don't know. I'm making it up. But if I was on the Philip Morris board of directors, I'd be thinking along something, those kind of lines. You look at what's happening right now with electric vehicles. So when you get governments that say by a certain date, no more gasoline powered vehicles are going to be allowed to be sold in this market. If you're a manufacturer, you're doing battery technology right now, big time, and electrification of our roads. So that just as you drive across the road, your car is automatically being charged. Well, and I'm not saying the car company is going to build that. It's going to be the government that builds that. But once that kind of infrastructure is in place, so then you say, okay, well, what should we do with all of those petrol stations? Good question. If the company owns them, they could say, oh, just sell them and let them become residential developments. Or maybe those become community gardens, or maybe those become hydroponic facilities for growing. I don't know. But that's the world in which we live today, in which there's a lot of creativity going on.
No, I think that's great. I think you're opening my eyes to a few things. I didn't think like that. So that's really great. Tell me one thing, digital transformation. As I told you earlier, everybody behind I call, again, I take the example of banks. They're my pain points. Yeah. I call them, and for 10 minutes I'm on call. Nobody comes in. Nobody gives a damn. Now, I'm not a very small customer, but I'm not a very big customer either. So how this digital transformation, what's your message? How to overcome this?
There are three important roles for humans to play in this era of digital transformation. First of all, the only reason you were calling the bank is because you weren't able to do something easily that you could have done yourself online. And so you needed to call the bank. And you probably weren't thrilled about it when you made the call. Okay. The first role for humans is, remember that when we're designing that interface, it's humans doing the design for humans. So I give you an example. There was an era a couple of decades ago when Singapore, and you and I are both now Singapore citizens, in its passion for efficiency, had a government dictum, an edict of sort, that said somebody should be able to get to what they want through a government website in no more than 3 clicks. Okay, somebody thought that the efficiency had to do with number of clicks. And what we ended up with was websites that were so congested with so many different places to click, because whatever you clicked on got you to another congested one and then to the third one. And if you knew where to click, you could get to anything you wanted within 3 clicks. But what if you didn't know? Then the first page you were already lost. And if you got to the second page, it was the second time feeling lost, and third. Okay. During that same era, my daughter, who's now 25, she was a kid, really small. And there was this toy that she had. It was kind of an online thing. And the first question was, are you a boy or are you a girl? Girl. Are you a big girl or a little girl? Big girl. What is your name? Brighten. Hello, Brighton. Would you like to play a new game or start with the game you've already been playing? You know, bum, bum, bum. And she click, 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 click. She did scores of clicks and was happy because in each click, it never confused her.
There was a human angle to it.
It never confused her. It was designed for a human. Now the Singapore government websites are much different, right? They're designed for, okay, are you trying to do this or do this? Click. Okay, good. Now we know you want to do this. Have you done it before? Or is this your first time? Oh, your first time. Okay, good. Come on over here. You know, and you may be clicking. You don't care how many clicks it is. You care how much cognitive load got put on you because of a poorly designed site. Okay.
So,
another example, there was an era when if you typed in the wrong password on Microsoft Outlook, the message that came up said, user error. We received a bad request. User error. I'm not a user, I'm a human. Error. I'm sorry. We, who's we? Received a bad request from me. Oh yeah, sorry about that. I guess I better try typing my password again. At the same time, Google and others, you know, you type in the wrong password, it says, oops, we're sorry, let's try again. Same thing. I had to try again. But in one case, you know, and in the other case, oh, come on, let us help you. So that's first thing. Humans designing for humans. If you're a designer, if you're a coder, if you're a UX person, if you're a customer interface person listening to this interview, it's on you, baby. Okay, number 2 is we're migrating people like you and me who did not grow up digital. And yet we're the ones who have more assets in the bank, except for the young technopreneurs who are the billionaires, and they're being handled in different ways anyway. So we have to migrate into these digital environments. Whereas for young people, they're born with it. Okay. So you want hand-holding, you want help, you want encouragement. When you called the bank, what you really wanted was somebody to answer the phone right away, hear what the issue was, and go, oh, great. Thanks so much for letting me help you out here. Let's bring up a shared screen and I'm going to walk you through it. And and each step along the way, they're not going to do it for you. They have you do the clicking. They go, that's right. You got it. Oh, no, wait a minute. See right next to that, this question? Yeah, that's what that means. Okay, okay, understand. Okay, good. Now click on that. Now, which one are you? Ah, you're there. Okay, now they're literally holding your hand. But once they've done that with you once, they're not going to need to do it with you ever again. And they can leave you with a, by the way, you know, Mr. Rajeev, it's really a pleasure working with you today. customers like you who learn so quickly. I mean, we're just really happy to have you as our customer. You're going, oh gosh, right? You feel, right? Number two. Number three is when something goes wrong. You need a, boom, you want a human who shows up that fast, and that human should have been fully informed by the technology, who you are, what your past experience was, where have you been clicking, what do we think it is that you're trying to do, what's the point of confusion, so that the person shows up and goes, hi, Mr. Rajeev. Yeah, I can see what it is you've been working on. I'm so sorry that you've had this issue. I'm so glad I get to help you. And you're going, perfect.
You have a meeting, let's say, just hypothetically, with the Intel CEO or any CEO, let's say Fortune 500 CEO.
Yeah.
And say, Ron, I want to make my organization, what do you call, Ron? I don't know, most of this customer-centric or most of the service-centric organization in the world.
Yeah.
What few things I want to do? What few things should I do?
Yeah, but it's not few things.
What are those then?
It's not few things. In other words, if you want to genuinely take that position, you're going to need to build a culture. You're going to need to engineer the development and possibly the transformation to achieve a sustainable, strong, innovative, competitive service culture. Now, there are three major elements of that. And anyone who has seen my book, Uplifting Service, or if you go to the website at ronkaufman.com, you can find this there. There's an architecture, like imagine the image of a house. The foundation of the house, we refer to as actionable service education. Teaching people about service action that creates value for other people, and that interpretation of putting the others first that we didn't learn in school. The only people who learned about service in school were those going into tourism and hospitality, and to some extent into medical care, right? But the rest of people are like, I'm gonna go out there and get a job and get high paid, and da-da-da. Yeah, well, how are you gonna do that? Well, I'm gonna make money, I'm gonna be the leader, I'm gonna get the promotion. Yeah, but how are you gonna do that? Nobody explained to them, you're gonna do it because you created more value for others. So there's a fundamental set of principles that can and should be taught. It's what we teach in organizations. But if you want to build an organization with that culture, you have to reckon with the fact that your adult working population didn't learn in school how to give great service. So we're going to need to teach it to people and do it in a way not like classes and academics and tests, but actionable projects, so that they can take these principles that I've created, and other people have created them as well. But I mean, I've got a whole tool set, and teach people how to use it on real service situations to make real improvements. That's the foundation of the house, okay? On top of the foundation are what we call 12 building blocks. These are areas of activity in which a leader needs to be sure that these are getting stronger. For example, the very first building block is, do you have a common service language? HR has a language, finance has a language, marketing has a language, manufacturing has a language. Do they have a common service language for all the internal service that they do? Or when you're serving the external customer, do the internal people understand the same language? So that's what our education produces. Then have you got an engaging service vision? So when you say something like service, even other airlines talk about, that's a turn on for the staff. What's yours? Right? And then there's a whole bunch of other building blocks: recruitment, orientation, communications, recognition, voice of customer capture, aligning your measures and metrics to make sure that you're actually measuring the right kind of things that encourage improved service. What do you do when things go wrong? Service recovery, having a process for continuous service improvement, benchmarking outside your industry to other great service providers, and then the phenomenon of role model. Those are the 12 building blocks. On top of the house is a roof of service leadership. Those leaders have got to align with certain behaviors, and we have 7 of them, and they've got to live those every day and demonstrate those. Because how many leaks do you need in a roof to mess up a house? One leader who's a jerk, right? Yeah. You know, one person who doesn't get it. Yeah. Can't afford that. So I'm sorry, you know, Mr. Leader says, what are the few things I need to do? Build a house, create a culture in which the people who work there are inspired to work there. They're motivated. They come to work glad to work there, and they learn more and they work better with each other every day.
I think this is great. Okay, just one couple of questions. As I said, one thing, how do you look at this, a high net worth individual being treated differently from a common person? How do you look at that? I mean, is it
What's the question?
how a high net worth individual
Yeah.
in a bank or a premier customer in an airline being
Yeah.
treated much better? And
Yeah. Okay. But let's be clear. Better is an assessment. Better is not a fact. Better is an assessment. Okay. And so let's take the airline example first. You got somebody who's paying for an economy fare ticket. They know the size of the seat that they're going to get. They know the quality of the food that they're going to get. They know the size of the movie screen that they're going to get. Okay. You got somebody else who's going to pay more. They're going to sit in business class with more, the seat will go back. You got somebody else who's going to pay even more. And that seat's going to be turned into a bed, and they're going to be pampered like crazy. And the quality of food is going to be a 4-star or a 5-star restaurant. Okay. That's called customer segmentation. Now, the question is not, how do you deal with the fact that one got better than the other? One paid more than the other. I mean, it's a commercial issue. The question is, did you give the economy passenger a better experience than another airline? Did you set their expectations properly when you sold them the economy fare seat? And did you deliver at least or over those expectations? And remember, I don't care whether you're first class, business class, economy, cargo, it's still a human being.
Yeah.
And so are your people treating these customers with dignity, with respect, with politeness, with listening, with authentic care?
You're famous, very famous, known in Singapore, association with Singapore Airlines. You want to talk a little about, how it started and, what did you do?
Sure. Just to be clear, I came to Singapore in 1990, so that's 31 years ago. And it was partly at the invitation of Singapore Airlines. And I've had the privilege of doing things over years with, everybody from pilots to cabin crew to ground staff to management team, overseas offices. I haven't done much work with Singapore Airlines in quite a few years. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, let's be clear. They never needed Ron Kaufman. People introduce me sometimes. He's the one who made Singapore Airlines. No. Singapore Airlines was doing great long before I showed up. I had the privilege of being able to contribute to their continued success. Okay. So you said, what happened in the beginning? In the very beginning, Singapore Airlines was sort of broken out from Malaysian Airlines when the two countries decided to permanently split. And they had 2 aircraft, and they were small, and they only flew to Malaysia. And that was the whole airline, right? And so of course, then they started growing, realizing we're going to need to be the national flag carrier. And there just wasn't the money to be able to buy the latest aircraft or fly to a global network or even hire Caucasian pilots at the time, which, if you asked international travelers to rank what was important to them, that was an era when, even that had a higher, and cabin crew service was number 7 on the list. But Singapore Airlines wisely looked at it and said, okay, maybe 7 on the list, but if we can develop a culture and a passion and a commitment in our team members to actually deliver an outstanding experience, we could differentiate based on that. Because they had the foresight to see that everybody was going to end up flying the same aircraft, showing the same movies, flying to the same airports, served by the same travel agents. So how are you going to differentiate? How are you going to stand out? And they made the commitment very early on for what they called service even other airlines talk about. And it wasn't just the cabin crew. It had to be the pilot. It had to be the ground staff. It had to be sales, reservations, baggage handling, everything. And they built an extraordinary culture, which has been enduring for many, many, many years.
What part of, and how do they continue to be now? You travel by Singapore.
Obviously right now during the pandemic era, it's an incredible challenge financially because they're flying aircraft with very few people and they're flying much less and travel's been, constrained. Fortunately, the investment behind the airline has the funds to be able to keep them going. And Singapore as a country needs the airline and needs the airport. We don't exist very well in the world unless we're connected to the world. And this has been a big challenge in this era. But I think as we open up again, you'll see Singapore continue to succeed there. So they do everything they can. They actually have 2 cultures. Most people don't know this. They have 2 cultures. One is customer facing for the passenger. And that's service even other airlines talk about. If it touches the customer, we're going to go all out. But they have another internal culture, which is called cost effectiveness. You're not going to see Singapore Airlines waste money if it's something on the inside. So for example, if you go to their corporate headquarters, it's not in a big fancy building downtown. It's at the airport. It's a lot less expensive to have it there. And if you go into the main lobby, you're not going to see a fish tank because you have to feed the fish. And what would feeding the fish and taking care of the coral have to do with taking care of the customer? Nothing. Cut that cost. I remember there was one time I was doing some work with an overseas station in Italy. And the station manager, a Singaporean, was walking through the office and he started stroking the walls as we walked down the hall. And he says, I love these walls. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, we renovated the office and I got this done so cheap. We both broke into a smile because what he was saying was inside the organization, they're looking at the productivity, efficiency, and cost of every item. Touches the customer, we're going to do whatever it takes. Inside the organization, we're going to do whatever it takes to also be profitable, not just well ranked in terms of service.
I think, Ron, I'll let you go now. Thank you so much. It's a privilege talking to you. I think you are such a fountain of knowledge. I hope I get time with you again, but I'll let you go now. I know you have an appointment. Thank you so much. Wonderful talking to you.
Rajeev, it's been a privilege talking with you and through you to all of your listeners. Thank you.